Guest here, and you can both comment on this. Lincoln Mitchell is a national political correspondent for the New York Observer, has been joining me all morning to talk about second Super Tuesday results, and this all sort of plays into the 2016 race. Do you think voters are following what's happening here with the Supreme Court pick? And could this sort of sway the GOP race? Could it affect the presidential politics in the next few months?
It's unlikely to affect primary politics on either side. Voters do pay attention to the Supreme Court with regards to general elections. And if you pay attention to general election time, one of the things that both parties say to their base to bring them out is, if for no other reason, you got to vote on the Supreme Court. If you're a Democrat, that's abortion rights. If you're a Republican, it's a bunch of other different issues. So this will, if this remains vacancy, it will become important in November, and that will help Hillary Clinton. I don't think the Republican strategists are saying what we really want to do is have an election where white middle-aged women are a key swing segment and have us talk most of the time about abortion rights. That's not the argument they want to have.
Well, as Kent said, you know, when it comes to Merrick Garland, ideologically, he seems moderate. It's not clear where he stands on all of these issues. So in that sense, you know, what do you make of this type of pick?
Well, this is, in the short term, this is a very smart decision. It really shows the kind of illogic of the Republican position here. To put it another way, what is the point they're fighting for here? Right? If you don't like a nominee, you have a constitutional right to vote against that nominee. And you don't have to say because he didn't go to the right law school. You don't have to give a reason for that. But to say we're not going to hear, they're in the position of basically shouting down someone who, from the looks of it, is a smart, moderate, decent guy. Everything he said screamed that, and everything he appeared screamed that today. Now, the other piece of this is the tweet that said we want to wait till the American people have spoken. The American people spoke in November of 2012, and they spoke in November of 2008. Yes, they're going to speak again in November of 2016.
But they also spoke in the midterm elections in 2014 and gave the Republicans power of the Senate.
And the senators can vote against him, right? But the problem is, at what point does this stop? What happens if 18 months before the end of a presidential term, a Supreme Court justice dies or steps down, or 24 months? There's nothing in the Constitution that says the rules change in the last year. And if you start making that argument, it's a very slippery slope. You can say, well, we're just going to wait till the next presidential election every time.
The word obstructionism has come up. I believe it was Bernie Sanders that said it after Mitch McConnell said that he was going to block and filibuster any nomination. Can Democrats play this to their favor in that sense? Painting this as Republican obstructionism against an entire branch of government?
Well, yes. And the reason for that is that the Republicans in the Senate have said in very many different mediums, we're going to be obstructionist. So, yes.
All right, Lincoln Mitchell with the New York Observer. Stand by. We're going to continue with this. Much more reaction ahead to the president's choice to replace the late Antonin Scalia on the Supreme Court. Stay with us.
What does this mean for our institutions, for our common life?
I want to bring back Lincoln Mitchell, a political correspondent for the New York Observer, just to close this out with a conversation on where this goes from here. You heard Kent mention it. There are 5 blue and swing state Senate Republicans that could be at risk in the November elections. Is this going to be an issue for them?
Yes, this will be an issue for them. Those senators, they don't want to run as part of the far-right Tea Party obstructionist bloc within the Senate. And one way to differentiate themselves is on this issue. And this is an issue, particularly the Supreme Court justice, who probably would resonate quite a bit with many of their voters. They'd like this guy. So this is a big issue for them.
Would you predict that there might be a possibility that there could be a hearing at this point if President Obama can get to some of those Republicans?
Yes, there could be, but the Republican leadership has really backed themselves into a corner on this. The only way they get to a hearing, it's hard to see what a deal looks like around something like this, so it's to concede defeat, and they certainly don't want to do that either. Remember, always, with regards to Republicans in the U.S. Senate and in the U.S. House, most of them are more concerned with being primaried from the right than their general election.
Stakes could not be higher for this election. Lincoln Mitchell, thank you so much for joining us with all your insights this morning. You have been watching Al Jazeera America's special coverage of President Obama's pick to be the nominee for the Supreme Court. His name is Merrick Garland. He is the Chief Justice of the D.C. Appeals Court. He's been serving on that court for 19 years. It is a fight that is expected to be bitter as Republicans continue to vow not to hold even confirmation hearings for him. Much more analysis on Al Jazeera throughout the day. Thanks for watching. I'm Stephanie Tsai in New York.